Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dev Diary, and happy Valentine's Day! To celebrate, we'll be indulging in a new interest I've seemed to pick up, and that's creating small arcade-like experiences, which was no doubt kicked off with work on that bullet hell with a twist from last month. Today we're tackling yet another arcade favorite, and now I'm not sure what it's called, but it's the one where the player has to avoid falling dangers, but also collect falling collectibles. So before we jump into this heart attack, be sure to like this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Show that notification bell some love too, and with that said, let's get to the lovin'. Alright, maybe let's not ever say that again. To start, here's a quick preview of what we're creating. Again, the premise is simple: avoid the purple hearts, which will damage the player, and collect the red hearts to increase the score. The more hearts collected, the more hearts spawn, and so it's a matter of survival in a score attack fashion. That's it, pretty simple, so let's check out the code. Like always, let's start with the variables, which are pretty straightforward, and let's get these out of the way. Indeed, we've got a ton of particles at work with this project in my continued effort to learn the best ways to utilize their potential. And with that brings us to the good stuff, the functions. First, we're pulling the objects that drop from the sky as if they're projectiles in a bullet hell. The next function records coordinates for a heart to spawn. The squirt function handles the surface draw for the splatter effects, like when a heart hits the floor. Our draw function displays the HUD, which as you've seen contains the score, player's health, and is also responsible for drawing the drip animations that play before a heart actually spawns. And speaking of heart, let's look at the function always lovingly referred to as the heart of our games, the ticker. First is the timer for heart spawns, which again are recorded in an array. Each array entry then goes through their own timers. A heart is then spawned at the top of the screen at the stored X coordinate. The heart itself is an object which slowly makes its way down the play area. Once it reaches the floor of the level, it is returned to the pool, all while particles are spawned for added effect. Now onto the player. In terms of control, the player is able to move left and right, and while doing so will generate a few particles to create a puff around their feet. The player can initiate a jump state, which also spawns an inky splat below. Speaking of the jump state, I decided to try something different from the norm here. Since the player can never bump their head, jumping was based on a timer. This would allow me to math out a jump that works more as a propel than a typical 2D side-scroller jump. And while in this state, to help illustrate this, inky particles burst downwards from the player's position. And finally, when the jump is completed, the player falls back to the surface so the process can repeat. No weird approach to jumps aside, up next is the collision event with those falling hearts. As expected, colliding with a good heart will increase the player's score and eventually increase the spawn rate of new hearts. Colliding with a bad heart will hurt the player and eventually lead to a game over. Either way, the heart pops with another particle effect. The game over state simply removes player control and sets the player's losing sprite. Overall, this was a fun little project to exercise with. Personally, I've not coded a platformer in ages, so thinking of new ways to approach the concept was sort of the initial appeal of doing this. Working on this project also meant another opportunity to do some animation practice, which I think went well enough. The loop on a couple aren't the best, but given the limited time to get this one done, it's fine. And I guess I should also kind of explain the use of a squid. It was honestly the first creature I could think of that could propel itself in some form, and also presented another opportunity to include particles. But most importantly, I recently saw footage of people eating a squid that was still alive, and it's kind of been on my mind a lot recently. So yeah, squids need love too, I guess, is the message I'm going with. Anyway, that was the project, so let me know your thoughts. Especially if you've ever eaten live squid. Would love to know the appeal. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video and would like to support the creation of more, consider subscribing to my Patreon. I promise fewer squids in the future. Maybe. Actually, I don't know if I can promise that. Well, regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.